Hi, my name is Daniel Keston. I'm a video solution consultant at Google, and today we're going to talk about some tips and tricks for troubleshooting video ads on your website. When your video player on your website needs to show a video ad, it actually has to do a lot of work. It is a little bit more complicated than when you show a display ad. When you show a display ad, your web page asks for some HTML, JavaScript, CSS, and then you're relying on the web browser to render it. But when your video player needs an ad, it has to do a lot more work. It's asking for what's called a vast XML, and the vast XML is not the ad. It's a whole bunch of data that describes the ad. And then your video player has to read that XML and figure out which media file it should play. And it has to send a lot of messages back to the ad server to tell the ad server if the user is watching the ad and how much of the ad the user has watched. Let's take a look a little bit deeper. This is a great tool you can use. It's a sample video player on a web page on the developers.google.com website. You can put in your own ad tags here and see what happens if this player tries to request your ad tags. This is a replica of what might be happening on your own website. But you know that the environment's a little bit controlled because this player has been tested and we know that it works. So if I just click here for the sample ad tag, here on the right side of my screen, I'm looking at the Chrome Developer Tools. This is the Network tab, and I'm pre-filtering with the word env equals VP. So this should show me only video requests to the DFP video ad server. If I click Test Ad, here is the ad request. First of all, in the player, you can see that we're already seeing an ad. And underneath the player, you can see that there are events going back to DFP recording that the ad is played, and now the content has already started. This is the request that went to DFP. I can see here the query string parameters for everything that was part of that ad request. If I look for the IU, this is the DFP network code and the ad unit that was requested. I can look for the size of the ad that was requested. I can see everything about the ad request, and it's important when you're troubleshooting to make sure that everything here looks like you expect it to. If there's anything here that you don't expect to see, you might need to talk to the developer of your video player to resolve problems with the ad request. If the request looks good, you might look at the response tab and you should see something that looks like this. This is a vast XML file. There's a lot going on here in the vast XML file. Let's look at one a little bit more closely. So you can see here, this vast XML file is called an inline vast XML. There are two different kinds of vast XMLs. There are inline vast XMLs that actually have creatives listed in them. There's also redirect XMLs. If you don't see the word inline, for example, right here, you don't see the word inline. But instead, you see this other parameter. It says vast ad tag URI. This is just another URL that your player needs to know to request. And if I copy and paste that URL into a browser, now I get back an inline vast XML. So once your player follows all the redirects that it needs to, and it gets an inline XML, it has to look for some important information in here. So look for the creatives XML opening tag. Under the media files, there are a whole bunch of different media files available for your player to choose from. You need to be sure that something is available that your player can play. Here you can see I've highlighted a video XFLV file. That's actually a Flash video file. Not all players can play Flash. If your player doesn't see a type of video that it knows how to play, it won't be able to play the ad for your user. So if you're seeing that an ad is not playing, one of the first things to check is what does the vast XML look like? And is there a media file that your player can even play? If there isn't, you need to talk to the traffickers or potentially a third party that is serving up the creative and ask them for a version of the file that you can play. Something else that's important to look at are the tracking events. DFP has no way to know whether the user is interacting with the ad unless the player is sending back messages to DFP using the events that are defined here in this XML. When you're troubleshooting, you need to be sure that the events you're trying to track are actually defined in your vast XMLs. If you want to know if users have completed the ad, but there is no complete tracking event defined here, there's no way DFP is going to be able to track that a user has completed the ad. Sometimes you actually don't even get back a proper vast XML. You might get back something that looks like this. This is an empty vast tag. This is an indication that there were no creatives available in your ad server to satisfy the ad request. Maybe there were no ads targeted at this sort of ad request. If your player is getting back empty vast XMLs, you need to double check the ad request that's going out from your player to be sure that the right key values and the right ad unit and the right sizes that you expect are being requested. And you need to double check the targeting in DFP to be sure that the line items you expect to serve are going to match the ad requests.